Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. We are so incredibly glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, really.
Whether you are stuck in traffic on your morning commute, maybe tackling a mountain of laundry, or just taking a quiet walk to clear your head, we are happy to be a part of your day.
We truly are.
And hey, before we really get rolling here, if you enjoy these explorations and find them helpful, please do us a massive favor. Share this deep dive with a friend who might need it, or hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, it really helps us keep the lights on and keep these conversations coming your way.
Exactly. Now, today is it's a little different. Usually we are down in the weeds debating some hyper-specific nuance or, I don't know, dissecting a complex academic theory.
Oh yeah, getting really lost in the details.
Right. But today, we are zooming out. We're going back to the absolute foundation. The title of today's deep dive is, What is Salvation in the Bible? A Beginner's Guide.
I love that title. It is grounded, it's clear, and honestly, it's the most essential question we can ask.
It really is. And I want to set the stage properly here because we have listeners from every possible background. But just to make sure, we are 100% locked in on the roadmap. We are exploring what is salvation in the Bible, a beginner's guide.
That is the anchor for the next hour or so.
Right. And if you are listening to this and you would classify yourself as a newbie believer, maybe you just started praying or you just bought your first Bible and it still has that, new book smell.
That's a great smell, by the way.
It is the best. Or maybe you're just incredibly curious about what Christians actually believe. Well, this deep dive is for you. We're going to keep the pace gentle.
You really want to keep the language simple. We aren't going to rush through this.
No rushing at all.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to impress you with theological jargon or $50 words.
The goal is clarity. We want to avoid that feeling of drinking from a fire hose, which I think happens a lot in religious conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, salvation is one of those words that is everywhere, yet nowhere.
That's a great way to put it. You see it on billboards on the highway. You hear it in old hymns.
You see it on those little tracts people hand out on street corners.
Right. But if you actually stopped 10 people on the street and asked, hey, technically speaking, what is salvation? I think you'd get 10 very different and probably very confused answers.
I think you're right. I think for most people, the default definition is just going to heaven when you die.
Yes,
And
it's
then,
viewed as a transaction.
like a ticket. You punch the ticket, you wait until you kick the bucket, and then you get into the good place.
Exactly. I pray this prayer, I get this reward. But if we look at our source material for today, which is the Bible itself, along with some excellent commentary, that definition is woefully incomplete.
How so?
Well, it's like saying marriage is just signing a legal document. Technically true, but you are missing the entire life that comes with it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So let's start with a better definition. What is the actual mission of this deep dive?
The goal is to move beyond a simple dictionary definition and see the full narrative arc. However, to ground us, our source provides a really robust starting point.
Okay, let's hear it.
It defines salvation as God's complete and total rescue of a person from the penalty, power, and eventually the very presence of sin, restoring them to a right relationship with Him.
I really like that phrasing. Rescue.
Yeah, it's an active word.
It implies danger. It implies that we are stuck somewhere we can't get out of on our own.
Precisely. And that brings us to our first major analogy. The source says that trying to understand salvation without understanding the rest of the Bible is like trying to understand a roof without looking at the foundation of the house.
That makes total sense. You can't just have a roof floating in midair.
Right. If you point to a roof and say that's the most important part, you're completely ignoring what holds it up. So we have
Yeah.
to start at the foundation.
We have to understand the context of the rescue.
Exactly. Why do we need rescuing? Who are we? What went wrong?
So we are going all the way back. Part one of our journey today is the rise of man, the foundation. We are opening the book to Genesis chapters 1 and 2.
The very beginning of the story. And the Bible starts with a very specific picture. It isn't just a random collection of myths.
It's a unified narrative.
A unified narrative that begins with perfection.
Now, the source points out something really interesting about the creation account. It uses the phrase, order out of chaos.
This is such a crucial distinction. When we read, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, we often just picture pretty scenery.
Like Bob Ross paintings, happy little trees, majestic mountains.
Exactly. And while creation is beautiful, the ancient Hebrew perspective focuses heavily on function and order.
Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Sure. Genesis 1 verse 2 describes the earth as formless and void. In Hebrew, the phrase is tohu wabohu.
Tohu wabohu.
Yeah, it means wild, waste, chaotic. It's uninhabitable. It's a mess. God's creative act isn't just poofing things into existence.
It's bringing order to that chaos.
Yeah. Right. The illustration the source uses is the divine artist.
Well, I like that.
Imagine a master painter standing in a studio. Before he paints the masterpiece, he has to prepare the environment. He takes a blank, chaotic canvas.
And the first thing he does is establish lines.
Yes, perspective, separation. He draws the horizon line to separate the sky from the land.
So the separation we see in Genesis, like light from dark, water from land, that's the artist setting the stage.
Exactly. It isn't restriction. It is the foundation for beauty. You can't have a masterpiece on a chaotic, unstructured canvas.
God creates a functional, ordered world where life can actually flourish.
He is carving out a safe space right in the middle of the chaos.
I love that. It makes God seem less like a magician doing tricks and more like an architect or an artist with a deliberate plan.
That is a great way to put it. And speaking of architects, scholars point out that this structure in Genesis 1 resembles something very specific from the ancient world.
Okay.
They call it the cosmic temple.
Okay, this is a concept that I think is totally new to a lot of people, myself included. When we hear temple, we think of a stone building, maybe a church or a big cathedral.
Sure.
How is the world a temple?
We have to get into the mind of an ancient person. In the ancient Near East, places like Egypt, Babylon, Israel, when a king built a temple for a god, there was a literal ceremony.
Like a ribbon cutting.
Bigger. It usually lasted 7 days. They would build the structure, furnish it, organize the priests, and get everything ready.
Wait, 7 days? That sounds very familiar.
Right. Genesis 1 is structured perfectly like a temple inauguration. God builds a structure on days 1 through 3. He furnishes it on days 4 through 6.
And then on the 7th day, something happens. The text says, God rested.
Yes.
Okay, let's be real for a second. This is something that confuses people.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being a kid and thinking, is God weak? Did he break a sweat?
Right. Did he need a Gatorade and a nap?
Exactly. Like, phew, making stars is hard work. I need to lie down.
No, that is definitely not what rest means in this context. God is omnipotent. He has unlimited energy.
So what does it mean?
In ancient kingship terms, when a deity or a king rests, it doesn't mean they are sleeping. It means the war is over, the palace is built, the enemies are defeated, and the king is finally taking his seat on the throne.
So resting actually means ruling.
Yes, it means taking up residence. Imagine the president moving into the White House. On Inauguration Day, when he sits at the resolute desk, he isn't taking a nap.
He's assuming his position.
He is dwelling there. He's officially in charge.
So the 7th day is God moving into his house.
Exactly. The cosmos, the whole world, is God's temple. It is his palace. And he designed it specifically to be a place where he lives with his people.
Man, that changes how you look at nature, doesn't it?
Completely. If the world is God's temple, then a tree isn't just lumber. A river isn't just a resource for us to use up.
They're the furniture of God's house.
Yes. It makes pollution or destruction not just an environmental issue, but a profoundly spiritual one. It's like spray painting graffiti inside a beautiful cathedral.
That is a profound shift in perspective. So the house is built, God moves in. And this leads to the state of existence before everything went wrong. The source uses this beautiful Hebrew word, shalom.
Shalom. Most people just translate it as peace.
Right.
But in English, peace is a very passive word. It usually just means the absence of conflict. Like, if two countries aren't actively shooting at each other, we say there is peace.
Or if my kids aren't screaming at each other, there's peace in the house.
Exactly. But shalom is active. It means wholeness. It means completeness.
It's positive, not just a negative absence of something.
Right. It means everything is weaving together in perfect harmony, working exactly as it was designed to work. It is universal flourishing.
The source breaks this down into 3 specific relationships that Adam and Eve enjoyed. And I want to walk through these because I think we feel the lack of them so sharply today.
We really do.
The first is the vertical relationship.
This is the relationship between humanity and God. The text describes God walking in the garden in the cool of the day.
That sounds casual.
It is. That is the whole point. It
Yeah.
implies face-to-face intimacy. There was no fear. There was no shame at all.
No need to perform or hide.
Think about the most comfortable relationship you have. Maybe a spouse or a best friend. Someone where you can just be yourself completely without filtering your words.
Where silence isn't awkward.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Now multiply that comfort by infinity. That was humanity with God. They were friends.
Wow. Okay, so that's the vertical, then there's the horizontal relationship.
So this is the relationship with each other, Adam and Eve, man and woman. When Adam first sees Eve, he doesn't just say, "Oh, hello."
He bursts into poetry.
He does. He says, "This is at last bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh."
It's a love song.
It is. But it's also a declaration of perfect unity. The source points out that they were naked and unashamed. Now, in our modern culture, we sexualize that phrase immediately,
Right.
but in the biblical context, it means they had absolutely no barriers.
No emotional walls.
None. No manipulation, no gaslighting. I wonder if he really means that. Just pure, vulnerable, cooperative oneness.
Honestly, that sounds exhausting to even imagine because we are so used to protecting ourselves.
It does, doesn't it? We are so used to wearing armor all the time that the idea of taking it off feels incredibly dangerous. But back then, it was perfectly safe.
And then the third relationship is the earthly relationship, the relationship with creation itself,
Right. Humanity was placed in the garden to work it and keep it.
which sounds like a job. I always thought work was a result of the fall.
That is a very common misconception. Work is good. Work was part of paradise. We were made to create and cultivate.
But before the fall, work wasn't a burden.
No, it wasn't toil. It was stewardship.
The source notes that the garden yielded its fruit willingly.
Yes. Imagine a master gardener who understands the soil perfectly, and the plants just respond with absolute abundance. It was a partnership. We were the king's representatives, caring for his garden, and the garden loved us back.
You mentioned king's representatives. That segues perfectly into the next big concept, the image of God.
The Imago Dei. This is one of the most important concepts in the entire Bible.
The source gives a really cool history lesson here about ancient kings and statues to explain what this actually means.
It's absolutely fascinating. In the ancient Near East, kings had vast empires. But a king couldn't be everywhere at once.
There was no Zoom, no TV.
Right. So to establish his authority in a distant land, the king would set up a statue, an image of himself.
Kind of like planting a flag.
More than a flag. The statue was a marker that said, this land belongs to the king, and this statue represents his presence and his authority right here.
So when the Bible says humans are made in the image of God, it's actually using that royal political language.
Exactly. We are God's living statues. We were placed in his temple garden to mark the territory as his. We are here to show creation exactly what God is like.
The source breaks down the image into three aspects. Let's run through them quickly because I think this helps people understand who they truly are.
Sure. First, there's the functional or royal aspect. This is what we just touched on. We are vice-regents.
We rule on God's behalf.
We do.
Yeah.
We are supposed to steward the world with the exact same love, wisdom, and creativity that God would use. We are his hands and feet.
Okay, second is the relational aspect.
This one is deep. The Bible hints that God himself is a community. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, a trinity. In Genesis, God says, "Let us make man in our image." Plural.
So God isn't a lonely monad floating in space. He is a family.
He is love. He is a relationship. Therefore, to be like God, we have to be in relationship. We reflect him most when we are loving others, not when we are totally isolated on an island.
Isolation distorts the image, but community reflects it.
Precisely.
And the third aspect.
The moral or spiritual aspect. We have consciences, we are creative, we are rational, we are makers because he is the maker.
That makes sense.
Like, beavers build dams, but they don't write poetry about the dams.
They don't wonder about the ethics of dam building.
Exactly. That spark of consciousness, that deep desire to create beauty, comes directly from the image.
I love the illustration the source uses here to tie this all together. The stained glass window.
Oh, it is my favorite visual in this whole section. Imagine a massive, intricate stained glass window in a grand cathedral.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The window itself is humanity. It's made of common stuff. Silica, sand, earth, just like Adam was made from the dust of the ground. On its own, the window is just dark glass.
But it's designed for glory.
Exactly. The sun shining through the window is God.
So without the sun, the window is just dark and cold.
Right, but when the sun shines through, the window absolutely glows. It takes the pure white light of God and refracts it into a million beautiful colors and patterns.
That's what we were meant to do.
We were meant to let God's light shine through us to illuminate the entire world.
And before the fall, that window was perfectly clean.
Not a single crack in it. The reflection was undistorted, The world looked at us and saw God's character perfectly reflected.
That is such a beautiful picture. And honestly, if the story ended there, we would be living in utopia. But we know the story doesn't stay there. We look around the world today and we do not see shalom.
No, we don't.
We see war, we see divorce, we see cancer, we see hatred.
The window shattered?
And this brings us to part 2 of our deep dive, the fall of man, the problem.
This is where the music stops.
We move to Genesis chapter 3. Now, most people know the basics. Snake, apple, bite. Oh no.
But the source calls this cosmic treason.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot more serious than just breaking a diet.
It is infinitely more serious.
Yeah.
We have to look at the temptation itself. The serpent enters the garden and whispers to Eve. He says, "You will be like God."
But hold on, you just spent 10 minutes telling us they were already like God. They were his image.
Exactly. That is the tragic irony. That is the core of the deception. They were already the image of God. They were already his perfect reflection. But the temptation was to stop being a reflection and start being the source.
They didn't want to be the moon reflecting the sun. They wanted to be the sun. Yes. They didn't want to be God's vice-regents anymore. They wanted to be the kings. They wanted total autonomy.
Autonomy. Auto means self. Nomos means law. Self-law.
Right. I want to decide what is good and evil. I don't want God to tell me. That is the absolute core of sin. It isn't just breaking a minor rule. It's a coup d'etat. It's trying to kick God off the throne of your life and sit there yourself.
Now, the source brings up a concept here that I found really striking, but also kind of terrifying. It talks about the transfer of the keys.
This is a vital point for understanding why the world is so incredibly broken today. Remember, Adam was given dominion. He had the authority. He held the keys to the earthly kingdom as the steward.
Okay, I'm following.
But there is a spiritual principle, and honestly a legal one too. You are a slave to the one you obey. The book of Romans, chapter 6, verse 16, puts it bluntly. By choosing to obey the serpent instead of God, Adam effectively switched allegiances.
He defected?
He defected. And in doing so, he handed the deed of the earth over to the usurper. This is why later in the Bible, Satan is called the ruler of this world, or the god of this age.
It wasn't his by right.
No, it was handed to him by humanity in an act of cosmic treason.
Okay, I have to push back on this for a second,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of listeners might feel this way. That sounds really unfair.
I get that.
One guy, thousands of years ago, eats a piece of fruit, and suddenly the whole world belongs to the devil, and I am born into sin. How does that work legally?
That is a very valid question. It feels unfair to our modern, individualistic minds. But think about it in terms of international relations or ambassadors.
Okay.
If an ambassador represents a country, he carries the full authority of that country. If that ambassador decides to defect to an enemy nation, he doesn't just lose his personal job, he compromises all the secrets and the territory he was entrusted with. He drags his entire nation into a massive crisis.
So Adam was the ambassador.
He was the federal head. He was the viceroy. When he fell, he didn't fall as a private citizen. He fell as the king of the earth. He opened the gates to the enemy.
So he basically handed the keys to the castle over to the invader.
And locked us all inside with him.
That is a terrifying thought. So we're born into occupied territory.
That is exactly the biblical worldview. We aren't just in a neutral playground where everyone gets to choose. We are born behind enemy lines.
And the consequences of this were immediate. The source talks about an inversion. Everything that was right side up got flipped upside down.
It is a total collapse. Let's look at those three relationships again.
Yeah, the vertical.
Intimacy with God is instantly replaced by fear. Adam hides in the bushes. The very first emotion expressed after the fall is, I was afraid.
And the horizontal.
Unity is replaced by blame. Adam immediately throws Eve under the bus. He says, the woman you gave me, she did it. Domination and conflict completely enter the picture.
And the earthly.
Stewardship is replaced by struggle. The ground produces thorns. Work becomes bitter toil. The earth actually fights back against us.
It's like the operating system of the world got a massive virus.
And that virus is sin.
The source uses another illustration here that I think really helps explain the slavery aspect of sin. Because, we like to think we are free. We think, I can do whatever I want. But the source uses the analogy of the horse and rider.
Yes. Imagine a powerful stallion. Before the fall, it's running free in a beautiful meadow with a trusted rider. The horse and rider are one. That is dominion. That is true freedom. The horse is fulfilling its purpose.
Okay.
Now imagine the horse throws the rider. It bucks him right off. It thinks, I'm free. No one tells me what to do. I am autonomous.
It feels like liberation.
For a brief moment. But the horse runs straight into a swamp.
And get stuck?
It sinks.
Yeah.
The mud sucks it down. The more it struggles, the deeper it gets.
Yeah.
It is technically autonomous. There's no rider on its back. But it is now a complete slave to the mud. It is exhausting itself just to stay alive.
That is a depressing but incredibly accurate picture of the human condition. We think we are free because we cast off God, but we are actually just stuck in the mud of our own selfishness, addiction, anxiety, and brokenness.
Precisely. Man fell from a king in a garden to a slave in a wilderness. And no matter how hard that horse kicks, it cannot pull itself out of the swamp.
So that is the bad news. And honestly, it is very bad news. If we stop right here, this is just a tragedy.
It absolutely is.
But the deep dive isn't called The Doom of Man. It's called What is Salvation in the Bible? A Beginner's Guide. So we have to turn the corner.
We do.
And this brings us to part 3. The rescue begins. The promise and preparation.
And here's the stunning thing about God. This is where you really see his character. He doesn't just zap Adam and Eve. He doesn't just scrap the whole project and start over on Mars. Right there in the garden, amidst the wreckage, amidst the excuses and the shame, he makes a promise.
Genesis 3:15. The source calls it the proto-evangelium.
Big word alert. Proto means first. Evangelium means gospel or good news. It is the very first gospel sermon preached to a snake and 2 sinners.
What does it actually say?
God is speaking directly to the serpent. He says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel.
That sort of sounds like a riddle.
It does, but it's a profound battle plan. God is promising that a descendant of Eve, a human being, not an angel, will come one day. This rescuer will engage in ultimate battle with the serpent, representing Satan. The serpent will land a blow, a strike to the heel.
A heel strike is painful.
It is painful, it's bloody, it cripples you, but it isn't necessarily final. But the rescuer, he will deliver a head strike, a crushing blow, a totally fatal defeat to the enemy.
The source compares this promise to a broken watch.
Yes. This is a very tender illustration. Imagine a child takes his father's expensive antique watch, a family heirloom, and he smashes it. The gears fly everywhere. The crystal is shattered into 1,000 pieces.
My heart rate goes up just thinking about doing that as a kid.
Right. The child is absolutely terrified. He thinks he is going to be disowned. But the father, who loves the child far more than the watch, kneels down and picks up the pieces. He doesn't say, well, it's garbage now. He looks at the child and says, I'm going to fix this. It's going to cost me a lot. It's going to take a long time. It will require immense skill, but I will restore it.
That is Genesis 3:15. I will fix this.
Exactly. I am not throwing you away.
But hey, he didn't fix it instantly. There's a huge gap between Genesis and Jesus, thousands of years. Why didn't the rescuer just drop out of the sky the very next day?
The source calls this the preparation.
Okay.
Right. You can't just drop the ultimate solution on people who fundamentally don't understand the problem. God spent centuries preparing a specific people, Israel, to be the vehicle for this rescue.
The source uses the analogy of a new piano.
Yes. If the world was a broken piano playing discordant, ugly noise, God called Abraham to start building a new instrument entirely. A people who had learned to play his music again, that was the nation of Israel.
And part of that training involved the law and sacrifices. Now, I have to be the voice of the newbie believer here. For a lot of people, the Old Testament is where they completely check out.
It is very tough reading.
Yes. They get to Leviticus, and it is all blood and altars and don't touch this and kill this goat. It feels like God is just obsessive and angry. Why couldn't he just say, hey, I forgive you and move on? Why the blood?
That is the million-dollar question, and it goes all the way back to the order out of chaos idea. God is holy. That doesn't just mean morally good. It means he is the actual source of life, pure, unadulterated life. Sin is death. It is fundamentally anti-life.
Okay, I'm tracking.
If pure life and pure death mix, it is like matter and antimatter. You get an explosion. So the holiness of God is kind of like a nuclear reactor. It is incredibly powerful and inherently good, but if you approach it without protection, it will kill you.
So the law wasn't just a list of arbitrary rules to make people miserable. It was a containment suit.
Exactly. And the sacrifices, they were a stark visual aid. The lesson was, sin is serious. Sin brings actual death. So for a person to live safely near the holy God, something innocent had to die in their place to cover that debt. It was absorbing the blast radius.
The source compares this whole setup to a coach and an athlete.
Right. Imagine a coach with an athlete who has terrible form. The coach makes them do rigorous drills. That is the law. Strict rules. Elbow in, knees bent. Then the coach shows them films of the greatest player of all time. That is the temple and the sacrifices. It is a picture of perfection.
So sacrifices were pointing to something coming.
They were just a shadow. The athlete isn't the champion yet, but the training is preparing them to recognize the champion when he finally arrives on the court. It was building a vocabulary so that when Jesus showed up, we would actually understand what he was doing.
And that brings us perfectly to the main event, Part 4, the rescue and restoration. The solution. The champion finally arrives.
Enter Jesus of Nazareth.
The source identifies him as the seed of the woman from that very first promise in the garden.
He is the total fulfillment. And notice the contrast with Adam here. The source highlights this beautifully. We call it recapitulation. Jesus is essentially retelling the story of Adam, but getting it right this time.
Break that down for us.
Adam was in a perfect garden with absolutely everything he needed, belly full, no threats at all. And he failed. He gave in to the serpent.
Right.
Jesus, on the other hand, was in the wilderness, fasting for 40 days, hungry, alone, completely exposed to the elements, and he was tempted by the exact same enemy.
Turn these stones to bread. Worship me.
Exactly. And Jesus refused to bow. He succeeded exactly where Adam failed. He lived the perfect life Adam should have lived. He was the perfect image of God. The stained glass window was finally perfectly clean again in him.
He beat the temptation. But then comes the heel strike, the cross.
Yes. This is the absolute climax of the rescue. Jesus allows the serpent to strike. He goes to the cross. He willingly takes the penalty of sin, death, completely upon himself.
It looked like a total defeat. His disciples fled. He died. It looked like the serpent won the war.
It certainly did. But remember the promise. The heel strike is painful, but the head crush is fatal. By dying as an innocent sacrifice, Jesus paid the massive debt of treason. He absorbed that nuclear blast of judgment so we wouldn't have to.
And by rising from the dead.
He crushed the head. He broke the power of death entirely. He took back the keys. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 18, Jesus explicitly says, I hold the keys of death and Hades. He took back exactly what Adam gave away.
The source has a really powerful illustration here, the trapped miners. I think this helps visualize the rescue so well.
This one always gets me. Imagine humanity is trapped in a collapsed mine. It is deep underground. It is pitch black. The air is slowly running out. We are totally cut off from the surface, from God.
And we can't dig our way out. The rock is just too thick.
Right. We are helpless. We are literally just waiting to die in the dark. Then we hear a sound, a drilling. A rescuer comes from the surface. He doesn't just shout instructions down a pipe like, hey guys, try to dig a little harder. No, he blasts his way in.
He physically enters the mine.
He enters the darkness. He fights through the solid rubble. He risks and gives his own life to carve a tunnel through the impenetrable rock. He comes right into the chamber where we are huddled.
He reaches them.
He reaches them and he says, I am the way. Follow me. He leads them out of the grave and into the bright sunlight. That is salvation. It is not just good advice. It is a literal rescue tunnel.
So that is what Jesus did. He built the tunnel.
Yeah.
But how does that apply to us right now? Because I am sitting here and I am not in a physical mine. How do I personally get in that tunnel?
The source talks about the application.
Right.
This is where the Holy Spirit comes in. When a person puts their active trust in Jesus, when they say, I can't get out on my own, I am following you, 3 distinct things happen instantly.
Okay, let's hear them.
1, you are forgiven. The debt is entirely gone. The treason is pardoned. 2, you are adopted. You have a new father. You aren't a slave trapped in the mud anymore. You're a true son or daughter. 3, you are indwelt. The Spirit of God moves directly into your heart.
Okay, I have to pause here.
Yeah.
Because this is where the rubber meets the road for the newbie believer.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, for the veteran believer too.
Absolutely.
You say we are new creations. We are indwelt. But I still mess up. I still get incredibly angry in traffic. I still have selfish thoughts. I still struggle with the exact same old habits.
Oh, wow.
If I am truly rescued, why am I still struggling? Did it not work?
That is easily the most common fear. I'm a fraud. But the source makes a very crucial distinction here. There is a vast difference between salvation, which is the rescue, and sanctification, which is the healing.
The burn victim analogy.
Yes. Let's go back to the fire and rescue analogy. Imagine a brave fireman pulls a person out of a raging, burning building. The moment he carries them out the front door, they are saved. They are perfectly safe on the sidewalk. That happens in an instant. They are not going to die in the fire.
Okay.
But look at them. They are covered in severe burns. They have terrible smoke inhalation. They are traumatized. They are incredibly weak. Does the fact that they are hurt mean they weren't saved?
No, it just means they are deeply injured.
Exactly. The rescue itself is instantaneous. The healing process, the painful skin grafts, the grueling physical therapy, the learning to just breathe again, that takes a lot of time. That ongoing process is sanctification.
So if you are a new believer and you are still struggling with old habits or bad thoughts, it doesn't mean you aren't saved.
Not at all. It means you are in the hospital. The church is meant to be the hospital. The Holy Spirit is the master doctor. He is gently but firmly tending to your deep wounds. And sometimes physical therapy really hurts. Sometimes scrubbing out an infected wound stings, but the pain is part of the healing, not a sign of rejection.
That is so profoundly encouraging. It takes the crushing pressure off being perfect immediately
Yeah,
and puts the focus squarely on being healed over time.
exactly. Dead people do not struggle. The very fact that you are struggling against sin is actually solid proof that you are alive.
Now, where is all this heading? We have covered the rise, the fall, the rescue. What is the final destination? This is part 5, the completion.
The new creation.
I think a lot of people have this vague, slightly cartoonish idea that the end goal of Christianity is to die, leave your physical body behind, and just float on a fluffy cloud playing a harp forever.
Which honestly sounds incredibly boring. It is like an eternal, never-ending church service.
It really does. And it makes people think, well, I guess that's marginally better than hell, but I'm certainly not excited about it.
But the source says that is a massive misconception. It is entirely unbiblical. The Bible absolutely does not end with us abandoning the earth to float as ghosts in space. It ends with Revelation chapter 21.
A new heaven and a new earth.
Exactly. God brings his home down to us. The text says, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man."
So the ultimate goal is restoration.
Yes. Remember the shalom we talked about way back in the beginning? The goal is to get that back, but even better this time. No more curse, no more tears, no more thorns. The relationship with God is fully restored, face to face once again. The relationship with each other is perfect, unhindered unity. The relationship with creation is healed. We will rule and reign and work, but with pure joy. We will explore the universe, we will create, we will eat. It is a deeply physical reality.
The source uses the classic car restoration analogy here.
I love this one because I am a bit of a car nut myself. Imagine a 1967 Mustang. It has been sitting out in a field for 40 long years. It is a total rust bucket. The engine is completely seized up. Mice are living in the torn seats. It is a wreck.
An absolute tragedy.
Now, a master mechanic buys it. He has two choices. He can crush it into a little metal cube, throw it in the scrap heap, and go buy a brand new shiny Tesla. That is replacement. Or he can painstakingly restore it. He delicately sands off all the rust. He totally rebuilds the engine block from the ground up. He reupholsters the seats with the original premium leather. He paints it the exact original candy apple red. When he's completely done, is it a different car?
No, it is the exact same car.
It is the same car, but it is glorified. It is better than new. That is redemption. God does not scrap creation. He beautifully renews it. God does not scrap you. He renews you.
That is breathtaking, honestly. It is such a vastly bigger story than just be good so you can escape the bad world. It is about the entire world being made right again.
It is the epic story of the whole universe being washed clean.
So as we wrap up, let's really bring this home for you, the listener. We have covered a lot of ground today.
We certainly have.
If you are listening to this and you are that newbie believer, I want you to realize exactly where you fit into this grand story. You were the slave in the wilderness. You were the horse stuck in the swamp. You could not get yourself out. But the rescuer came. He took the heel strike for you. He completely crushed the head of the enemy, and he has successfully pulled you out.
You are now safe. You are a true son or daughter of the King. But remember, you are also under active reconstruction. Be very patient with yourself. The burns are slowly healing. Do not give up on the process just because it hurts sometimes.
And we want to give you a very specific encouragement that was highlighted in our source material. As you start this new walk, there are going to be a lot of voices, a lot of loud opinions trying to guide you.
Yes, countless opinions.
Just stick to the map. The Bible is the ultimate map.
That is incredibly crucial. There are a lot of traditions of men out there. There are a lot of cultural ideas about what Christianity supposedly is. Do not rely on those. Rely exclusively on the pure word of God. If God says it, cling to it tightly. If he doesn't, hold it very loosely. The Bible is the epic story we just told. It is the literal story of your rescue.
Yeah.
Read it like a personal love letter from your rescuer.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It is always a huge honor to walk through these topics with you. We hope this has cleared away some of the fog and given you a much better view of the roof and the all-important foundation.
Amen to that.
If you have just started this walk with Christ, be deeply encouraged. The best is truly yet to come. The final restoration is absolutely guaranteed. We're going to sign off with a final thought for you to chew on today. We talked about being God's living statues, his image bearers. If God is currently polishing you, carefully removing the rust and the grime of the fall, what specific aspect of his image is he trying to shine through you today? Is it his deep kindness, his boundless creativity, his enduring patience? Think about that. Let the sun shine brightly through the glass. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Goodbye, everyone.